Okay, I guess we are live. Welcome back to our live stream for today. And we did our live stream last, I think 2 days ago. And today we're going to be leaning towards the topic of IT and logistics. So we have many friends in IT help desk and logistics, and we're going to be a bit biased with our lesson for today. Okay. And our theme is from tech support to trusted advisor. So you might feel that way that you think that you supported the client or the customer, you gave your best, you have the technical idea, but since you're not confident or unsure about what you're talking about, so they end up asking you more questions. So instead of being at ease or, "Oh, okay, so I think I'm safe now," so they tend to ask you more questions. So in order to avoid those things, we're going to give you three tools. Okay, so it's like a toolbox that you can use so that you can move from someone who is just giving out information or sounding like a junior, and you're moving to someone who's like an executive or you're an advisor. So instead of just feeling like, oh, I work in tech support or I work in customer service and customer logistics management. So instead of being viewed that way, he will be a trusted one, like an advisor. And there's a big difference. And I experienced this when I was still working in an outsourced company from the U.S. And there's that situation which I will tell you later. So there's a story that that happened to me. It's like a real life story. And I was younger, that's fine. And as we grow older, we gain more knowledge and wisdom. And I'm willing to share that with you so you don't need to experience the same embarrassing moments in this field, like IT help desk or logistics. Okay. And there are points here like why your expertise is getting lost in translation and the cost of the expertise communication gap. So moving forward to beyond functional English, which we also talked about like a few days ago, like the difference between functional English and executive English. So why is your expertise getting lost in translation? So your your brain is powerful, so maybe you have the technical knowledge and everything, but there's this thing that makes you sound less confident, or some people say, oh, this guy is or this girl is very incompetent or something. So some people are harsh like that. So they don't care about how you feel when you're serving. Maybe you're serving over the phone, like a customer service. Sometimes they blurt out those words like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So it's not just translation. It's your tone, and yeah. So that's a problem, and that's a very specific pain point for for especially for young staff. So you feel that way. You have this increasing cognitive load every day. So imagine like what we talk about, like the bottleneck situation. So there's a bottleneck situation where you imagine like there's a bottle and here's the neck, and then you're trying to fill it with a soda. So if you just fill it with 2 tablespoons, that's okay. But if you fill it with a gallon, so you will notice that it will take more time for it to process and to put all the water or soda inside that bottle because the entry point is too narrow. So hopefully with our mission here, we would like to make that wider. So we're going to help you make the the bottle of the neck wider. So when you keep on translating, if it's just two words, 3 words, it's okay. But if you have a lot of sentence trying to process in your head, and then while you're processing it, another foreigner or another client is talking too fast, so it increases the cognitive load, or it gives you more stress, right? And functional English, like what we talked about, sometimes if you are just giving out information, it's okay. It gets the job done. But if you would like to sound like an advisor, you should be like an authority in that field. Example: you're you're a teenage, and your parents are trying to ask you about, oh, how did the house go? So what happened? So did you cook some meal for dinner or something like that? So you will say, oh, I cook rice, vegetables, and I put it in the oven for 180 degrees for 40 minutes. So that's fine. That's basic English. But if you communicate like a CEO example or executive, you say, "Oh, I did all my homework today. I cleaned the house, and I cooked some food which I put in the fridge. We can microwave it later. But I suggest, since it's Friday, why don't we go to the pizza? What do you call that? The buffet or pizza. Let's go out and have like a movie, because you're very stressed with your work, and yeah, I did everything right, correctly, and the house is very clean. So you're giving your parents the direction and the thinking that, oh, that sounds amazing. So you influence instead of just giving out information. So that's the difference between the basic English and the executive English. So you get to influence others. So you extend your network and connect with other leaders. And of course, you want to be noticed at work. You don't want to work in the same position for 40 years or 30 years. You want to get a promotion or get a raise. So English is really an investment. So some students say, the cost is a bit high or expensive, but think of it like it will go back to your in the form of your salary. So that's an investment. Okay, high pressure, low fluency. Yeah, like what we talked about, like the bottleneck situation. So you're in that high pressure, and you tend to stutter and forget the words and your spiel. Maybe you're working over the phone and you memorize those spiel, and it does not apply to that specific situation. So what do you do? So you get the mental overload. Okay, solving problem versus finding the words. So you should connect the gap between solving those problems and your English in your back, in your memory. There are limited phrases, maybe, so you need to work on that. You need to learn more phrases, learn in chunks, not just words. And whenever you're trying to learn in chunks, make sure there's a theme. Okay, so don't just pick up random chunks of words. Be sure that there's a theme. Like today, our theme is about IT help desk and logistics. So I'm going to give you tips later about these industries. Okay, so number two is the translation trap. Why Thai syntax kills your speed. Of course, you need to translate all the time, and uh, there's this term called transliterating. So you literally translate everything into your own language. So we can think of other languages too. So, for example, you're Japanese, you're Mexican, you're from Ukraine, and you tend to translate first in your head before you blurt out your response. And that gives you more time to process everything. So the result is you speak so slow and so it's not confident. So the other customer or the client may be frustrated or maybe just hang up because they are so frustrated with your service. And also sometimes I'm also guilty of this. Even the native speakers, they are guilty of this, using and ah. And there are times that you cannot avoid um ums and ah, but try to minimize, okay? Because if you use it so frequently and you use it all the time, it sounds less confident, and like you're not doing your homework. You didn't prepare for the interview. For example, you're applying for a job, so try to minimize ums and on, and it lowers your perceived authority. Yeah. So we also have friends in marketing. So I talked with a marketer before, and they keep on mentioning things like perceived value. Yeah. So these are the key terms in under other industries. So your perceived value. So if you have like a product, for example, Apple, case in point, Apple. What's the perceived value of Apple? It's so high, right? So when you think of Steve Jobs, so you think like, oh, it's very expensive, like the iPad, iPhone. So our perceived value of that product, it's so high. So you should also do that in your own career. So with your career, you should work on it. You should have like a high perceived value that your colleagues and your bosses always think of you like someone who is competent or knows what he's talking about or what she's talking about. So you should have that perception, okay, perceived value, and you need to work for it. You cannot do it overnight. So it takes practice, okay, practice and constant reflection. So every day you might want to have like a journal about your English learning journey. So it's not just with a coach or the teacher. You always need to work hard for you to get or gain that perceived value or perceived authority. Next is don't just report, but lead. Okay, so that's the key word, lead. So you always want to appear like you're working like a CEO. So you're working like you own the company, and that gives you a lot of perceived value. So if you work by heart and not just, oh, it's because it's my task, so I'm not going to do it well. So you should have that integrity that sometimes you need to lead, okay? So it's not just taking orders, but you're someone who is thinking out of the box. So you don't just think that, oh, this is the response, I need to memorize the spiel because this is how we do the business. But if you're thinking like a future leader, you should think like a leader. So you take a look at other issues that you're trying to solve, and if you're thinking that this can lead to another problem, so you give that information to the customer. So explaining the server was down for 2 hours due to a port error. So it sounds very junior, right? Very basic. The server was down for 2 hours due to a port error. It's correct. There's nothing wrong. But if you want to influence or sound like an advisor, you say, we resolved the port error to prevent a 15% drop in productivity. So you sound more credible. It's like, whoa, wow, he's so confident or she's so confident. So I trust her words. So next time there will be an issue, your boss or a business partner, trust your words because you can be viewed as an expert. Key shift, focus on result, not just actions. Okay, so you should be result driven. You should show that because of your suggestion, this thing happened. So you are uh, coming up with better processes or better, or you streamline the processes. You make uh, things go smooth in the company. So you have concern. Okay, so you don't just work there for the salary. Okay, now the rhythm of authority. So that's our uh, bread and butter for the executive coaching. So think like there's rhythm in your authority, like music. There's a proper timing. There's a perfect timing for everything in order for you to deliver the information. So directedness, kill the fillers. Use the status is instead of I think maybe. So the status of the report is we are almost finished. So it's about to be finished EOD, like end of day, end of this day. We're going to finish the report and deliver the goods. Strategic pausing, pausing after your main point. Let the solution sink in. Okay, so you don't just use ums and ahs. You should use the power of pause. So if you delivered something like an information, pause for about 2 seconds. So let that sink in so that your colleagues, your client, or your boss or your business partner will absorb the information so they can think about it. Tone control and with a downward tone. Sound like the expert, not a question. Not a question? Okay. So are we going to deliver the items today? Okay, so we have that habit of using the up top. If you're not asking a question, try to deliver everything in a downward tone to sound that you are sure about what you're talking about. So in logistics, you always think that the warehouse, if it's full, it cannot get to the shipment if the communication is not good. So you should be a communication expert, not just for English, but also with your colleague in your region. So if you communicate with the same nationality as you are, even if you are uh, both Thai or both Filipino or both Mexican, if you don't communicate well, you cannot deliver. So you cannot deliver the package to from the warehouse to the customer because you did not communicate well. And your communication, if you're good in communicating with your colleagues, you should translate that to the global team. You don't just communicate well in your mother language, but in your global team, you tend to get lost in translation all the time. So you cannot convey the idea, so they don't understand. Probably it's your pronunciation. So in your local group, local team, it's okay because you understand each other because you know your uh, habits when it comes to pronunciation. So, for example, business. So, some of you might pronounce it like business. So, in your local team, it's okay. But when it comes to the foreign ear, which is your global team, they don't understand that. So, what should you do? You should exercise and keep on pronouncing the right word in order for you to convey the message, and there will be no gaps. Okay, so your global team should be able to understand every words that you say. So it could be that thing. Sometimes the flow, you get lost in the middle of your explanation because you don't know the right phrase or the right sentence. So you should work on that. Right. So if you are serious with your English proficiency, you cannot just learn on YouTube all the time. Although these resources, our mission here is we want to teach everyone, like anyone around the globe. So we want to reach more people and provide this for free, but YouTube cannot hear what you're saying, so it cannot give you feedback. So you really need a coach in order for you to develop your leadership skills. So if you're serious about this, you can book your free 15-minute audit. So I can assess your speaking style and also our teammates here. So we can schedule for a Zoom or Google Meet call. Just scan what you see on the screen, and we also have that in the description of this YouTube video. But by the way, we're also streaming via Facebook, so we can now stream on both platforms. And maybe tomorrow or some other day, we're going to add Discord. So we also have a Discord group. So our Discord group is like an invite only. So it's like a community. We want to be sure that those joining our Discord group are serious with their career. So you can meet with different nationalities in that Discord group. So we have Vietnamese, we have Venezuelan, Mexican, Ukrainian, and then Thai. And then we help each other. So sometimes maybe you can chat with a team member from Mexico or maybe schedule a call with them. But of course, you need to follow the channel rules. So we have a Discord server. If you are interested, just message us and we can interview you first before you join the Discord community. Okay. So just to recap, okay, so you want to sound like an advisor. You don't want to be viewed as someone in tech support. So it happened to me. Oh, I forgot to tell that story. Yeah, I was supporting over the phone like many years ago. I was in my early 20s, and there's this customer who's from the US, and he's asking about the provider of this product or something. And then I told him we have a partnership with Q West. So Q West because I read it like Q West, but the pronunciation should be Quest. So he felt that this guy doesn't know how what he's talking about. So he asked for a supervisor. So instead of talking to me, and it's so painful, like when you're in your early 20s, you're trying to support them, and just because of mispronouncing Quest is like a competitor of AT&T in the US. So I didn't know that you need to pronounce that like Quest. So see, you also need to get into the culture of people from the West. So if your client is an American client, you should know your partners. So you should know how to pronounce those company names, like not Q West, it should be Quest. And also, there's this guy. I think he's from Portsmouth. So the spelling is Portsmouth. So I believe that's a city in New Hampshire in the U.S. or it's also a city in the UK. So instead of pronouncing it like Portsmouth, I said Portsmouth because Mouth, you pronounce it like Portsmouth, right? So I was young, I didn't know there's no Google, there's no internet. So the customer told me, "Hey, did you read about your American history? Why do you pronounce Portsmouth like Portsmouth. So at least I still feel flattered that I was mistakenly identified as someone from the US. So he didn't know that I'm Filipino. So you should also learn those things. So it's like part of their pop culture. So if you have time to connect with your foreign friends, just talk about anything about their culture and try to absorb everything. It's not just memorizing the phrases and sentences. Okay, so it's not just your knowledge. So you might have the knowledge of an expert. Like your knowledge is in 4K, everything, your brain is 4K, but the problem is your connection. So it's like you are trying to connect to the server. So your brain is your server. It's like a 4K server, 4K file in the server, and then your cable, which is your communication, your fluency, it's like a dial-up connection, like the old days. That so you connect to the internet using that slow speed, and your manager or your client is the one trying to browse, and they get frustrated, so they just close the tab because they cannot understand what you're saying or your point. But in your head, you know all the technical details, but you cannot communicate it well, okay? Because the port or the cable is too thin. So that's your fluency. So you should work hard on that. Okay. And don't just report, lead. Okay. Always think that you're the CEO of the company in order for you to get recognized and get a possible promotion. You don't want to work in your company for 30 years in the same position. You want to move up. Okay, so don't underestimate the power of pause. Okay, so that's the recap for today. Don't forget to book your 15-minute audit while there are still slots available. Like in the future, I think you will uh, find it hard to book a call with me and my team. And until next live stream.